Many people have been asking Nintendo to lower its prices for both the Nintendo Switch 2 console handheld that will be releasing in June, but also for the upcoming games and software that it will be releasing, specifically Mario Kart World, which currently has a price tag of $80. However, that does not appear to be the case. It does not look like Nintendo will be lowering those prices at all. We got some comments from both the president of Nintendo of America as well as one of its vice presidents. Wrote this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. So first off, let's look at what Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser had to say in an interview with the Washington Post. He specifically discussed the differences in prices between Mario Kart World, which is priced at $80, and Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is priced at $70. I will say one of the things that they don't talk about this at all, which I've kind of been frustrated by, is the lack of pricing on their various websites. You go to the Nintendo shop, you go to any of the documentation that Nintendo has released for the Switch 2, for its Switch 2 editions for like Link, etc. That are kind of like the upgrade editions, if you happen to have those for Nintendo. And the pricing is very difficult to come by and makes it really hard to know what exactly it will be priced. This should be something that should be easily found, and I don't think that Nintendo has done a good job of making that easy to be found. But anyways, this is what Bowser had to say about the differences between the games that are going to be launching on the Switch 2. And he says, what you see right there is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the responsibility of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. So while they've got Mario Kart World priced at $80, they've got Donkey Kong Bonanza priced at $70. It does sound like they are clearly open to maybe increasing those prices depending on what the game is, maybe lowering it depending on the game and all of the factors that go into it. And they aren't going to be set at kind of a standard price, which we've kind of seen over the past years, where what it was a PlayStation 4 game was typically $60. And then obviously with PlayStation 5, we saw games increase to around $70. And those were the standard prices that we saw for those last two generations. It does not look like that will be the case here with Nintendo Switch 2. They are going to be using a variable pricing model. Bowser also rejected the idea that this was Nintendo trying to set a new benchmark throughout the industry. He said, I think it's less about representing the industry. This is really about Nintendo deciding the right thing to do for its products or what the pricing should be for its products overall. Even in the previous generation, we had some variability. He then reiterated that the variable pricing model is the one they plan to pursue, saying, I think for us, that's really how we want to proceed and go forward. I can't speak for other games that might be released by other publishers or other platforms. It's more about what we think is right for our content, what is the right value for the consumers as they come into our platform. So that is what Bowser had to say regarding the pricing for Nintendo Switch 2. He wasn't the only one to make such comments. From Nintendo of America, we also heard from Nintendo of America Vice President of Product and Player Experience, Bill Trinen. He spoke to IGN about the pricing, saying, I would say it's less about the strategy of pricing Mario Kart World. It's more just whenever we look at a given game, we just look at what is the experience and what's the content and what's the value. So basically saying the same thing that Bowser is saying about the variable pricing and the factors that go into that pricing. He continued saying, Mario Kart World, I think, especially as you see from the Nintendo Direct, not to give you any hints or anything, but I did read your article this morning, and I think you had mentioned that you didn't find a lot to discover when roaming around. So I would say tune into our Mario Kart Direct to see what maybe you'll be able to find out about that. But honestly, this is a game that is so big and so vast, and you'll find so many little things in it to discover, and there's still some other secrets remaining that I think as people end up buying and playing the game, they're going to find this to be probably the richest Mario Kart experience they've ever had. So obviously, he is noting that the price for Mario Kart World is more expensive than Donkey Kong Bonanza and potentially some other games because of how much is in the game, the experience of the game, etc., and the gameplay, and noting how it is clearly they value it more than Donkey Kong Bonanza. So that is what Bill Trinen had to say there. He did speak on the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games such as Super Mario Party Jamboree, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and The Legend of Zelda: The Tears of the Kingdom, which are reportedly to be priced at $79.99. Again, I am finding it very difficult to find any of that stuff over on Nintendo's website. It's really difficult to find any information on a lot of that stuff. We can go over here to their specific page on these Nintendo Switch 2 editions for their featured games. And Mario Party Jamboree, there is no price listing here. I mean, I can do a Control F with a dollar sign. Nothing shows up. So this is supposed to be their page about the Nintendo Switch 2 edition games. It obviously talks about that there is this upgrade details, doesn't give a price for both of the Zelda games. Same here with Mario Party Jamboree. There is no price for any of this stuff. I mean, you would think there should be some kind of MSRP price where they're going to be asking for what they're going to be asking for, right? What they are expecting it to retail. And we're just not seeing that for any of these games. I mean, even here it says, how do you purchase the Nintendo Switch 2 edition? And it tells you how you maybe can purchase it, but it doesn't tell you how much it's going to be. So again, very hard to figure out what any of this stuff is going to be. This is the page where you expect the prices to be on here, and they're just not. And then even here, this is kind of interesting to me too. It says Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack members get access to the following upgrade packs at no additional cost. You must have the physical or digital version of the game to download its upgrade pack. Active membership required. So it sounds like you can get these two Legend of Zelda games if you have this pack, but then if you don't have the pack, it sounds like it might cost maybe $10 to get it. And again, that's not listed here. So a little bit of transparency on prices, I think, would go a long way, because it's just really difficult to find where any of this stuff is on their website. You would expect on their page about the Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, there would be pricing, and it's just simply not there. But anyways, let's go back to what Bill Trinen had to say about these games. He says, well, again, what I would say is that we just look at each individual game and we look at the content and the value of that game, and then we say, what is the right price for the value of this entertainment? So again, reiterating that variable pricing. He went on to say, what I would probably counter to some of that is that really what you're looking at is for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition. That's the physical price for somebody that has not bought the base game. For somebody who has bought Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, the upgrade packs for those are $10. And if you happen to be a Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack member, both of the Zelda upgrade packs are inclusive within that membership, so there's no additional charge for those. But I would assume that even if you've paid for that membership and you decide to let that expire, then you may no longer have access to those upgrades. So that's also something that I think they need to clarify. There's just a really lack of transparency with a lot of this stuff. And again, I mean, this is a super detailed webpage here with a ton of information, but it just doesn't have the pricing where you expect it to be. Trinen also talked about the actual Nintendo Switch 2 as well. But before we get to that, he also says, but I think overall our general approach is really just focus on what's the content, what's the value, and what's an appropriate price based on that. So again, doubling down on the variable pricing. But as far as the Nintendo Switch 2, I wrote about this in another article here. He talked about the price being $450. Obviously, there's the bundle for $500 where you get Mario Kart World in that bundle. But he says, but I think anytime you're building a new system that's got new features and new tech, there's cost associated with that. So again, we look at what is the experience on Nintendo Switch, what's the experience on Nintendo Switch 2, what are the new features that it offers, and certainly there's the cost of goods and things that factor into that, but we try to find the right appropriate price for a product based on that. And again, it's really only $100 more than, I guess, the upper end of the Nintendo Switch, which I think is $350, and then there's another version that's $300, and then they have like the light version that's $200 that doesn't allow it to be on a docking station. So you're really only looking at $150 increase there from the Nintendo Switch. So that isn't like that big of an increase in the bigger picture. So that is what he said about that. noting that we obviously put new features into it, new tech, etc., and there's cost associated with that. So that is why the product is more expensive. And then obviously didn't even touch on inflation and all the things that go into that, and that obviously affects the price there as well. I would assume with all the costs and things that go into that. So that is what Nintendo has had to say about the prices. Obviously, if you've been watching any of the Nintendo Treehouse live stream that came out, or pretty much any stream talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 and the prices, people have been complaining about it being too expensive and hoping that Nintendo would drop the price, asking Nintendo to drop the price, demanding that Nintendo would drop the price. That does not look to be the case. They are going to have variable pricing depending on the game. And we're hearing that from Doug Bowser. We're hearing that from Bill Trinen. And they are sticking to kind of the talking points that they clearly are using for this, which is obviously, I think, part of the company's strategy. I mean, we did see Donkey Kong Bonanza was listed at 70 and Mario Kart World at 80 immediately after that Nintendo Direct last week. So it is what it is. I don't think they're going to lower it. I think this is kind of what we're going to expect moving forward. We've seen lots of executives talk about the cost of these games kind of getting out of control. In order to minimize risk on a lot of these games, you're going to have to increase the price point. I know we've seen Matthew Karch over at Saber Interactive talk about that. Obviously, there's been lots of discussion with Grand Theft Auto potentially being priced at $100 and kind of setting a new benchmark. And I think that is what we might see moving forward. Now, obviously, I think there are going to be companies that are going to make maybe AA games, maybe some indie developers where those games are going to be priced a little bit lower. And there's going to be competition, I think, with that, especially now that seems to be the trend that everything is going digital and less physical. And so that obviously cutting costs on that end when you're talking about manufacturing discs or I guess in the Nintendo's case, like the chips or the cartridges or whatever you want to call them for the Switch and Switch 2. So let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.